Every Steam Next Fest, we get to try out the upcoming indies that are going to eat up our time for the next few years. Typically, I don't participate as I prefer to play games when I buy the full release, but this year we wanted to try them out and give you our opinions in video form. This will be split up into 2 videos between me and my co-host Matt. And for this one, I've picked out 10 games I really wanted to try out. So for my very first game, I picked Denshattack. Immediately, the visual style drew me in and I knew I had to try it out. This game is the Tony Hawk trick system with Jet Set Radio music and Persona 5 flair. This game is really fun, but also pretty casual. The low poly art style is really charming, and the game feels like an early 2000s game you'd find on a GameStop shelf. The game itself is an extremely fast-paced game, and I could see this being a great handheld game to kill a few minutes every day. I really like the character designs, and I'm curious to see how the rest of the cast will look. The story has an interesting setup, but you can tell the primary focus is on the gameplay and how replayable it can be. Challenges on each level give you a goal to keep focused while you try to improve your score by pulling multiple tricks in the air. Like in the Tony Hawk games, I had a little trouble consistently doing tricks in the air without crashing, but once I got more comfortable, I found myself sucked in. The music is as fast-paced as the gameplay and helps add to the excitement of the game. I would say if you're a fan of Tony Hawk, Jet Set Radio, Sonic, or any movement-based game where you're going really fast, you owe it to yourself to try this demo out. The next game on my list is Scott Pilgrim EX. As soon as this game was announced, I was excited. I've been a fan of the Scott Pilgrim franchise since the Edgar Wright movie came out, and although I wasn't a biggest fan of the original game, I found this one to feel much more smooth and fun to play. Since the last game, I've also gotten a lot more into beat-em-ups, such as TMNT Shredder's Revenge, Marvel Cosmic Invasion, or Streets of Rage 4. The gameplay is simple, but it's addicting and definitely something you can just pick up and play at any time. Each character in this game feels unique, even if you're using the same combo strings. I made sure to try out every character, and even joined a random person's online game to get a feel for how multiplayer would be. I typically prefer to play my beat-em-up solo, and even in the single player, it's really fun. Of course, playing with other people makes the levels way more frantic, and it's really fun when you can combo an enemy together. The sprite art in this game is beautiful, and I love all the character designs for the NPCs and shopkeepers. The mission structure and world reminds me a lot of River City Girls in the way that you're completing tasks, you're checking your map, you're trying to get to the next area to complete objectives or to go to certain shops. The music is fantastic as expected. This game comes out very soon, and honestly, I might go pick up and play a bit more of the original game after having played this one. Data Strafer is as straightforward as its menus. It's a no-frills bullet hell where you're this ship flying around and blowing up other ships. The music helps you get into the zone as you destroy other ships and get points to upgrade your weapons. I love that you can choose at what point you get your upgraded weapons. For example, let's say I have an upgrade that I want to get, so I can either choose to have my upgrade as a level 2 upgrade or push it to be a level 4 upgrade. If I set it as a level 4 upgrade, the benefit is that it'll get some bonuses or it'll be much stronger than it would be if it was level 2. However, now you have to build up all that experience just to get that one weapon upgrade. Depending on the type of upgrade, you might want to do it earlier because it'll help you level up much faster, and then you can set your other upgrades for later down the line so that way they'll be more powerful. The visuals are really simple and appealing, and the branching levels let you pick what rewards you want to go after first. If you're stuck on a level, you could just go ahead and try a different one and maybe get a reward that'll help you with the one that you failed at. The difficulty ramps up naturally as you go through the levels, and I'm sure it's going to be super frantic in the late game. The shooting feels really good, especially once you level up your blaster and your fire rate. It's a really fun indie game, and I would recommend it if you're into this kind of game. Might Rhea is like if you take DMC and you mash it up with My Hero Academia. This game is undoubtedly very anime inspired and is super fast paced. The way the combat works is when you're hitting enemies, you kind of automatically get shot towards the next enemy. I thought the concept was cool and I did like the visual style, but the game itself was kind of hard to follow. I never quite felt like I was in control of what I was doing because of how you shoot from one corner of the arena to another. The feedback on the hits was good, but the pacing of the fights was a little bit overwhelming. Overall, you have some pretty basic platforming and you can jump to different points. There's some skills to do like an ultimate, and it definitely is very focused on doing stylish moves for your combat. I really liked the UI in this game, or like, you know, like the The menus themselves are pretty basic, but there's a lot of like really flashy elements, especially like when you're finishing a wave of fighting the enemies. I'm not quite sure about where the story's going so far. I will say though, it does kind of remind me of like those fan games where you can play like a superhero in a sandbox world, kind of. That's kind of the vibe I was getting. It didn't feel like a completely polished game, which obviously I would understand because these are all indie games for the most part. A lot of them do kind of have like that extra bit of polish. But yeah, I think my biggest criticism would have to be the combat. I would say give it a try. Obviously, all these games are free for the Steam Next Fest. I think it was worth giving a shot, and I'm sure you could have a lot more fun with it, especially if you're more comfortable with really fast-paced action games like this. Super Meat Boy 3D is yet another game I anticipated since I first saw it revealed. I'm a big fan of platformers, and this one kind of takes me back to being a kid playing Flash games on my barely functioning laptop. I remember I used to play this platformer game where you would die really easily. It was called like N Plus or something. I would play it on my old laptop, and honestly, this gives me a lot of vibes similar to that. My experience with the Super Meat Boy franchise is actually pretty limited. I've only played a little bit of the original game on a PS Vita, and I've never really completed it or anything. I really love the fast-paced nature of its levels. I'm not a speedrunner, but playing the game makes me feel like one as I try to master the movement and get through the levels as fast as possible. Super Meat Boy works surprisingly well in a 3D environment, while it still retains everything that works in the 2D games. I felt like I wasn't having too much trouble in most of the levels, and a lot of my failures were mostly on me. But occasionally I did feel like the controls were working against me. Sometimes I would try to wall run and Meat Boy would just fall straight down. He wouldn't attach to the wall. Sometimes he'd be way more slippery than I expected and he would just like slide into saws. But other than that, honestly, I had a great time. I did find myself sometimes getting really frustrated at a level when I was failing a lot of times, but most of the time it was because I was trying to get a collectible and finish the level fast. But, you know, like overall, that's just kind of the kind of game it is, and I really enjoyed it. I wanted to keep going by the time I actually finished the last level. Vampire Crawlers is a game that I was eagerly anticipating from its first announcement because I am such a huge Vampire Survivors fan. I have put so many hours onto Vampire Survivors on my Steam Deck. I remember I bought it the year it came out. I had seen some gameplay. I thought it looked really basic and I didn't know if I was going to like it, but it had so much praise that I decided to just give it a shot. It was only a few bucks and it became like my favorite game of that year. I don't remember what year it was. Maybe it was like 2023 or something. But yeah, like out of all the games I played that year, I think that was my favorite. And like with just 30 minutes of Vampire Crawlers gameplay, I could already tell that it was going to be just as dangerous for me as Vampire Survivors. The gameplay is very basic, but it's super addicting. What really hooks you is the way the game is constantly rewarding you. Just like Vampire Survivors, I feel like what really gets you attached to the game, like what gets you addicted, is when you level up, you get another weapon, and you level up so consistently, like you're constantly getting rewarded. And also getting like treasure chests, getting upgrades from that. It just like, it feels really good to your brain. And like the sound effects, like it just makes you want to keep going. Like the sound and visual effects, like they activate something in your brain. Out of all the games I've played, I can probably see myself pouring the most amount of time into Vampire Crawlers when it officially releases. For sure on my Steam Deck. Honestly, like at this point, my Steam Deck is mainly for these like short burst indie games that maybe become less short burst and just kind of suck me in for a few hours. Something I can like play while I'm watching a show or something. And I think Vampire Crawlers is perfect for that. And I'm super excited. I also really like that there's like a little bit of voice acting and they kept the uniqueness of every character. There's a lot of really cool menus, like when you get to, before you pick your level, you can go to your shops and change your characters. It's all designed very nicely. I really liked the way the levels looked. I like, you know, it's basically just a different version of Vampire Survivors, and I really like that about it. And there's a really big, you know, risk and reward system. You can try to kill more enemies to gain more levels to be more powerful, or you can just go straight for the boss and finish the level. I think it really gives you a lot of agency in how you want to play your runs and how you're going to be able to complete them. So I'm super excited to see what the full game is looking like. Cat Squeeze is a very cute and deceptively simple puzzle game that has you navigate as a cat in multiple stages as you collect fish. I was immediately just drawn to the cute, cozy atmosphere of the game. The music is super soothing. It's kind of just like background noise. It can be a little bit repetitive, but you kind of just forget about it as you try to like solve the puzzles. The puzzles start out relatively simple, but they ramp up to feel nearly impossible as you progress the levels. It's not the game's fault, but I did find myself getting pretty frustrated as I struggled to complete later levels. When it would finally click and I could find a solution though, I would feel extremely satisfied. Sometimes I would be stuck for like 10-15 minutes just over and over again doing the same things, trying to change minute little ways that I move my cat, move boxes, and then all of a sudden I would just find the solution somehow. The demo offered a lot of content. There's a lot of levels, so many so that I literally had to stop playing. I got to a point where I was like hard stuck on every level I could play, and I felt like I had played enough to get a feel for the game. This gives me the vibe of a game you would play on your phone, kind of like an Angry Birds per se, not the gameplay, but the way the gameplay loop works, where you're doing these different levels, and once you get to a really challenging one, maybe after enough attempts, you kind of call it quits. That's how I operate with those kind of games. It's very cute though, and I would recommend it if you're really into puzzle games. Altered Alma, I want to say immediately that the pixel art in this game is just absolutely gorgeous, and I love all the character art. The standout in this demo was the combat and the traversal. I love the way you can use your dagger to teleport to where you aim it, and dashes to get through the platforming parts of levels, and the parrying feels really good when you're in combat. There's these really cool finishing moves you can do with your dagger once you've done enough damage, and you get like this sort of bonus superpowered state when you use your dagger in combat, and it increases your stats. It's really cool. I wasn't sure when the demo actually ended because there were a lot of areas blocked off for the demo, and I wasn't entirely sure of how to progress the main story. I ended up getting sidetracked on a side quest, and then I got stuck, so I didn't get to make much more progress. But I'm curious to see where the story is going to go, and more importantly, what kind of crew members you'll meet. I really like relationship systems in games. I've liked it since Mass Effect and Persona. Being able to get to know a character better and deepen your relationship with them is something that I really like in games. So I was really excited when I saw that that was an option in it. And honestly, it's probably like a big draw for me to want to play it. But yeah, like overall, I really liked the visuals, and the gameplay itself feels really good. Some of the traversal puzzles can be like a little hard, but I think like they're not totally unfair. It really is just about trial and error and mastering them. Just like Super Meat Boy, it's really about having that patience and not rushing in when you keep failing at a level. So I did really enjoy that aspect of it. I'm pretty excited to try out Altered Alma when it comes out. Out of all the demos I played, Dragon Gate Tournament might be the most straightforward of them all. There's literally no story, no levels. It's just you start your tournament and you drive and try to blow up other vehicles. I think you just have a tutorial and the tournament. I did find myself getting a little bit exhausted playing this, but I do think it's a good way for you to kind of get a feel for the gameplay. It's very much just like destroy your competition, make it to the finish line. Once someone is destroyed, they're out of that round of the race, but they could still throw these missiles at the remaining competition. Once I got the controls down, it wasn't too bad, but I actually had a hard time consistently winning races. Sometimes I would pick up an item and try to flip my car backwards so I could shoot someone before flipping back, and every time I did that, I would immediately lose. I think if you're playing with friends or random people online, that could be really fun. The weapons were interesting, although I do hope that there's more, and I hope that there's more interesting tracks. The one that we had is a pretty simple, like, driving around the course, that's it. Overall, I think it's a really cute, fun little time waster. And if you're into this kind of game, I think you could enjoy it. Calx is a visually interesting game with a colorful yet muted cel-shaded art style. I've never played games like Journey, but I would imagine this is similar to those, at least from an outside perspective. The environments and music feel really quiet and somber. As you're going through the levels, you'll find data entries that give you more information about the world and what's happened. There's not like too much dialogue, but this is definitely like spacey, post-apocalyptic. You're traversing probably an area with like dying deceased civilization. I think this could be probably a really introspective and depressing game to play, I'm sure. The gameplay is pretty straightforward. The traversal and combat feels simple yet satisfying, and I really enjoyed the bullet hell elements, especially when facing against this first boss that you're introduced to in the game. It reminded me a lot of Returnal, which is the bullet hell that I'm most familiar with. In terms of story, I wasn't able to glean much from the demo, but I can tell, it's going to go some interesting places, and I'm curious to see what the whole protagonist shifting thing was about, because you start the game as one character, and then I think he like awakens this other character, and then you start playing as him, and he has like less skills, which I get it. It's like kind of Metroidvania style where you start off with a bunch of abilities and then you get them taken away and you have to relearn them. Overall, I think it's pretty fun. I really like the way that you have the combat. You have like a little blaster that you can shoot, which can help with puzzles as well and to stun enemies. And then you have your sword. You also find these little like attachments that you can get that give you like special abilities or help with your combat. I'm sure those will like deepen the way the game feels. Like the best part about this game to me really is the visuals. I love cel shaded art styles. I like the way that this world feels. Like the colors pop, but also like they're not super bright or in your face. It feels like you're playing a painting, which I think is really interesting. If you just take a look at some of the gameplay, you can immediately tell if this is going to be your kind of game. Let me know what games you tried out and what you thought was interesting. If you'd like to see even more games and hear our opinions, watch out for Matt's video coming soon.